Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're at. We were talking before the call that we're across about every time zone there is. I'm Scott Klein. I'm a customer success manager here at Go1. So I get to work with my terrific clients like Shawn at EDF to help them achieve their goals through our products. So we're going to be kind of diving in with Shawn today to talk about their learning culture and history and how they've been doing performance management through education and what a role that has done through L&D and trying to upskill their employees, where they were, kind of the challenges that they've had to face, how they overcame them, where they're at now, and look at and celebrate some of the successes with them as well. So I'd like to introduce Shawn. Shawn, good morning.
Good morning, Scott and Harris and everyone else out there in cyber world. I'm Shawn Fisher from EDF Renewable Energy. I'm with a company. I'm in the North America portion, but EDF Renewables is global. So everything that I talk about today is just what we've done in North America, not the entire world.
Thanks, Shawn. So give us a little bit of background about EDF as a company. When you say worldwide, what does EDF look like?
So EDF is, we have renewable energy, which most of what you see in North America is wind turbines and solar farms and everything. We're starting to dabble in some more of those battery storage and stuff like that. So there's some new technology coming on out for the EDF North America side. But yet even in the global side, EDF has a little bit of everything. We have offshore wind. So when you go, you're flying over to Paris or something and you see all these huge wind turbines out in the middle of the ocean, most of those are probably EDF Renewables. One of the things that everyone always asks me is, what does EDF stand for? Well, EDF stands for Energy de France. So that's where our parent, our mother company sits, is in Paris. And then the EDF Renewables in North America, we sit in San Diego, California.
Great, thanks. So with the reach and the scale that you have and performance management and keeping track of employees is challenging for every organization. What were some of your challenges you've had in the past before we started on this journey of using L&D to promote that?
So it was really a difficult situation. Before the L&D, Learning and Development team became a piece, every department kind of had their own learning management system. Everybody kind of had their own silo of how they did training. And so you have one person would be able to do that training, and it really didn't go over if that same training needed to go into another department, It didn't really talk to each other. You had to have special permissions, and it was a lot of red tape to get into different platforms. EDF, at one time, we had 7 different platforms that we were using the whole system, the company for North America. Some of it was just, we have things that are in Canada and Mexico and, us in the US, we were all kind of using our own little places to do stuff. And then what it took is it took a lot of time to try to build a report just to get some of that data because, one person would do it and, they could run the report on a Monday and, the next person's going to run the report on Friday. Well, data's never really matched up. We had a few of our platforms that did have everyone in some of our compliance trainings for our preventing harassment. You still had so many different people looking at it and only looking at their small people and not the whole picture of how everything was sitting. And the last few years, they kind of the company ended up taking our learning and development team, which was pretty much only our operations side. We went into it, so then we became an HR feature. And so we were able to look out there and started pulling and saying, oh, you used this, well, let's do this. And we started kind of coming into and bringing it to one platform as our HRIS system that we were using had that opportunity to include and embed a learning management system. So then we kind of mixed the two together, and so we were able to have all of that data and stuff that kind of started to sit into one place. And that started about 2.5 years ago, where we actually had one LMS system to sit there and focus on, and one person helping to reach out and do those nudges and looking at the picture for the whole company.
So you went from a very siloed approach from the different regions and everybody doing their own thing to really consolidate and put it into one for an easier management.
Yes.
Making that move and getting that buy-off from decision makers and higher ups is sometimes challenging. What were some of the things you did to kind of build your case and show that there's a need for this and that you have a solution in mind?
Well, we basically, there was 2 of us on the L&D team that we really did a case study on financial sides and also looking at who was using which pieces and what pieces were still really, were they needed or were they not needed? But the biggest piece was being able to truly go in and showing our VP of HR and our CEO that, hey, this is, if we kind of move some of this pieces here and there, we can save you some money. And, you know, every company is, well, where can I save that? What piece can I save money on? And it's taken us about the 2 years that we've been really going in and using our own one single LMS system with other add-ins into it. It's really improved us we're at a 65% financial savings. And that is, you know, hopefully in the next few years, we can even make that bigger numbers of saving, because there's still a few pieces that different departments really still need it to keep their platform, because it was so unique and we haven't quite gotten another platform that can integrate with our current one to be able to pull that data.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and money always talks, right? If we have a solution that we can help save money with, usually that catches people's attention for it. So last question before we kind of get over into the actual program. Where it's so siloed and you have to get all that information, how did you collaborate with your colleagues from the different regions to get their data, to find out what they're doing to really, you have the money side of things, but where do you get the use case from the different locations?
So that was the other person from the L&D team that she really kind of looked at some of this McKinsey 7S stuff, that she really looked at dealing to and dropping down and getting the nuts and bolts of everything that wasn't the financial side of it, because the financial side talks to everyone, but she was able to she really looked at it and said, well, here are things that we were doing good at, these are things that we weren't doing so hot at, and been able to show that into that same structure and using all these different platforms to saying, what is, besides money, what's the next thing? We look, well, safety, are we doing it? Yep, safety is great. Okay, what's the next level? Well, the next level thing that really was bad is the reporting side. Because we do, even though we're North America, we have our internal reporting, we still have to send different data points to France to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is where we're spending the money on. This is how our training numbers are looking. Those all still had to go to France, but everybody was doing their own. And, France wasn't happy that instead of getting it all on one day, it was a whole week it took, and they got little data pieces. And having kind of been able to pull that all together into one location and having one report being able to go really showed them that said, hey, this is what where has this been? And I know that they're looking at other things as well.
Yeah, that's great. The McKinsey model is terrific to be able to look at the different components that make up, what you're looking for, what you're looking to do. Has a great framework to work within so that you can really analyze and pull out what you're doing well and what needs improvement. So what were some of, as we're talking about moving forward with the solution, what were some of the primary motivations EDF had for using content and L&D to upskill and manage employee performance?
So one of the biggest hurdles we had is because we are a North America thing, we had a language barrier in certain places. And certain countries you have to put the training in their preferred language over, even though EDF has a thing that you have to be able to speak English, at least understand it to a degree to be able to work for us, in certain areas. It still had the barrier that we had is we were having, none of us on the L&D team could speak French or French Canadian, and none of us speak Spanish. We had a huge hiccup on a lot of things because we would be able to produce our internal training that we were building in English, and it would take months to get somebody to help us translate it. Because there wasn't anybody that was a role that they had in the company. We try to borrow somebody from up in Canada to say, hey, can you, when you can fit this in, can you translate this for us? And we had a little bit more delays that were happening. And unfortunately, one of the things that really helped, not really helped us, but really gave us the extra push to how we did our partnership with Go1 is we had a fatality on a site in Quebec that it wasn't an EDF employee, it was a contractor, but it was still the thing that really shook everyone when it comes to safety, that not all of our safety training was in French Canadian. And when we were able to show some of that reasoning and partnership with Go1, because Go1 had that French Canadian language that most of our other providers didn't. They had French, but if you know anybody that's in Quebec, it's not the same. It really wasn't. And so one of those things that helped us push forward and moving to the partnership that we currently have is because of that ability. And now, I have loaded more and more training that there might be an EDF version of something that's in English, but we were able to find some of the other stuff that is from our Go1 catalogs to merge the two together into our course. So if you're in English, you can take that English course, and if you speak the French Canadian, you can do that French Canadian course, and it all still stayed the same. We don't have, Mexico has a different rhyme and rules when it comes to training. It has to come through the government platforms. It has to be 100%. So what we've done is we just given them extra training that we currently can give, that it's not assigned to them as mandatory, but it gives them the opportunity to have some of the same courses that we have been doing for the last 12 years for Canada and US, and starting to include that culture with them as well.
Yeah, and thank you. Again, it's moving from that kind of siloed approach to having that one centralized system that you have your data and your training on. And that it can be consistent throughout the regions. And as we continue to move and worldwide in different continents even, that it's that same consistent message going across there. Yes. One of the things that you mentioned is the safety and then the safety training. And I know that a culture of safety is huge at EDF, particularly with the type of work that you do and the dangerous environment. How did you kind of change the learning culture from one that just is safety or compliance only to actually moving into the realm of upskilling employees and teaching them new skills? maybe helping them prepare for a new job as a manager, if that was skills that they didn't have? How do you transition from that compliance-only training into a culture of learning?
So it was a very slow start to move from that culture of safety and only doing safety training to making it a little bit wider. We used a couple different platforms besides Go One at the beginning because our contracts were still valid and stuff. And our CEO really likes LinkedIn Learning. So we took a lot of different pieces from the different catalogs and we started to slowly work with different departments to say, here are some manager trainings. And we kind of build some of those, how to be a good leader, how to communicate. And then we just took some of those soft skill things that you really are more of an open discussion. And we started to incorporate them into some of our, daily trainings. EDF also has 6 values and actions that we have that are respect and accountability and teamwork and just to name a few. And we started to, every 2 months, we kind of had a cadence to show and kind of, hey, here, push out these type of trainings. And we left everything kind of as a self-service. With every so often, we'd find one that was a 5-10 minute course that was really good across no matter where you were in the company, and we'd push it to kind of give them a little, here, assign this, but we'll see what happens. And we really, starting that really got people to start using our Dayforce LMS platform and kind of realizing that you didn't have to just wait to get something assigned to you. You were able to go in and self-service some of these things. One of the other things that we started adding was a Feed Your Brain Friday that is a random topic out there. A lot of times the topics are the things that our executive team is talking about, that they're saying, we're missing this, email etiquette. There's been some issues. And we would just find some topics and we kind of throw them out there. And we have certain individuals that they are biting at the bit every 2 weeks to say, Shawn, what topic's coming today? And, so then we've encouraged certain individuals to give us ideas. We have a lot of diversity pieces out there that we just kind of give them out there, and we have a diversity culture team. But we were able to link some of those things, some of those topics that they're asking for. And we started just to kind of give them out there. The senior manager for the L&D team also started to work on workshops and offering different topics that went with our values and action, but it was more on the leadership side of things to help push some of those soft skills that not everyone has. One of the things, we have a really great operations and maintenance technicians, and a lot of them have been with the company for quite a bit of, they've been there for a length of time. Well, then there'd be a site supervisor manager open, and they would, they'd apply, they'd get it, they'd go. But we found that they didn't have all of those skills that were needed to be a really good manager. So there's a couple other departments within the O&M team and the L&D team, and they started building some of these cohorts to try to get some other individuals some information that they needed. And we were able to use our LMS to get that training there to know, hey, they were doing it. I mean, they had other little pieces that they did, but we were always able to use our LMS as a soft point to be able to build up and build the structure from it by adding more and more to it. We started out with a couple hundred courses, and I think I'm now at over 1,000 of just building some of these topics that aren't required, but it's building their library. And in another year, I hope I have another 1,000 courses in there as our topics and our structure keeps evolving.
Yeah, thank you. No, and that's a very difficult thing to do that you guys have done so well. And I think to recap, I mean, that you put a plan in place, right? Here's your assigned learning. You're going to have this library where people can self-serve. You have your Friday where it's kind of fun or topics that are very relevant for the time. And then you can break it out into the different cohorts and everything else like that. So this is kind of that softball question for you there. But how do you manage, or how do you get all that content? If we're talking about leadership and safety and compliance and DE&I, like where do you get all that content from to be able to accommodate all their needs?
So it comes from right now we're at about 4 sources. Our L&D team is a wonderful team that there are certain individuals that have some topics that they're really kind of that subject matter expert in. And we have a technical side that are building for the O&M team and things like that. We have our other departments inside of EDF will help and work with the L&D team to build our own e-learning piece to go inside the system. But then we also have 2 outside sources, Go1 being one of them, and LinkedIn Learning, where we are able to embed them inside of our LMS. So they're able to never really leave our system, but they're really connected into the back door into these other 2 platforms, and they're able to take those courses that they, that we've assigned, that we've built, and we're using that as that structure. And we have individuals that, hey, I'm really looking for this, and I can open up the catalog and say, well, there's 500 some courses. Do you have more specific, or here you go, what do you look for? And those are those individuals that, they're not part of our L&D team or the HR team, but they actually help us find some content that they're like, oh my God, this is what I need. This is what my whole team needs. And we just move it over, we give it, and we have a nice feature with our with Dayforce that gives a little deep link that I can pull a little thing and give it to that manager so that they can share with their team, and they're able to find it really easily to say, here, this is the course I want you to take, do it. But we also have our managers and some of our admins can assign training to their team by just the way that our platform works. And that is where it's not sitting solely on my shoulders to assign a training out, but they're able to do some of that. And that's been very helpful, but I have to have the content in there first for them to be able to assign it. And that's where here's the plug for, that we have. But LinkedIn Learning has 60,000 courses. Our Go1 catalog has 60,000 courses, but they're not always the same. LinkedIn doesn't have all my safety stuff that I need. They have some of these other skills, but I have to have, with a LinkedIn, I have to have the full course, even if I only want 10 minutes of it. And then we have our Go1 catalogs that has more of that bite-sized, some of that training. Yes, they have long trainings, but they have those bite-sized things that I might need just to give somebody, a manager, something to say, hey, we all watch this, now let's talk about it. Let's give, and using that as their base to have that communication. We want an open communication with everyone. You want to have that interaction, and so they've been using some of that as a team piece. And we have a lot of the safety training that, we have 26 safety topics. So every other week there's safety topics that are sent out and required that our guys have to do, and it's just nice having it all in one place and not having to have them sit there and do a PowerPoint anymore and just, okay, yep, great, one person talks and it's very things. Now with our LMS, we're very able to be e-learning and very interaction and listening to somebody talk to us, not just one person. It has movement, it does everything that we need.
Yeah, and having the resources available, right? Go1 as a content aggregator with thousands of courses, and LinkedIn Learning as well, that you can go back to that as much as you need to as those needs arise. And Shawn, just real quick, we had a question from Valerie. What LMS do you use?
We are currently using Dayforce or Ceridian Dayforce. That is our LMS. That is our HRIS system. So that is where we use the same one that was connected. So we didn't have to do two separate, having a system that you had all of your HR, your employees in, and then having to also add them into a new one. We used to do that, and we'd miss people until somebody needed to do stuff. So it was nice having it all into one.
Perfect. Thank you. So, and then Michelle asked, and this is a great question, as we talked about having that well of resources between LinkedIn Learning and Go One, as the library grows, how do you ensure team members don't get overwhelmed with everything? What kind of a curation or filtering process are you using to make sure that learners have what they need but aren't getting overwhelmed with a tidal wave of courses?
So what's kind of nice with the way that with how Dayforce is set up is there is just a catalog that connects the systems to LinkedIn and or Go One, where it's their own little catalogs, but everything else is we're building it. We're adding it, we're doing it, that they don't always know that there's something else out there. Without being one of those individuals that say, hey, I'm really looking for this, and how do I do this? We kind of have some barriers up that not everyone accesses everything. They only can see what I put into the system or the teams put in the system. It's not, they don't have the full catalog. Like they do, but they don't realize they do. And then it's just the way that the sorting features go into those catalogs that they can go in to do that.
Yeah, so you have the access to everything, but then you actually kind of reduce what's available to what you actually want to display to your learners, so they can find what they're looking for without getting through the 160 to 200,000 courses you have access to. You're just surfacing what you need for it. Perfect.
Yep.
So and we're coming up here on where time's getting lower. So audience, if you have questions, I encourage you to put them in here. One of the things that we have, and this is fun as we've looked at your growth over the years, is that you started off with assigning out the courses to everybody, and now with your Friday topics that people are suggesting courses to you. How often does that happen? How do you promote that? To really have that bottom-up experience where employees are coming and say, hey, I want to learn about something. How do you make that happen?
So on our Feed Your Brain Friday is in our it's called The Wire. It is our communication for our company. It's our platform that our communication team does to share out everything. Inside of that, when we promote every other Friday when we're sending that Feed Your Brain Friday topics out, we have little disclaimers on the bottom saying, let us know, reach out to the L&D email, tell us if there's something you're looking for, tell us if there's something that you're, that you can't find. Just having that communication, letting them know that, hey, you let us know what you're also looking for, because I actually sit in Iowa. I'm not in the corporate office where everyone's sitting and talking and doing, and where I can't hear the buzzer from everything. It's kind of one of those things that the way that the platform is that it is a self-service. We have them broken down in categories, and they're able to go in and do certain things without always having to have us hold their hand and tell them. And it has improved so much in this last few years of having everyone in one place.
Great. Again, that siloed approach to a central area that everybody can access, and then having that communication so we can get those requests coming in. Louisa asked, how do you measure the utilization of Go One? What kind of data do you look at to measure that?
Well, on my side is the courses that are my assigned safety trainings. I look at it as when I go through the topics, I pull the reports, I have them all coded so I know which ones are my Go One courses, and I look just to see if people are taking them. Because those topics are that self-interest, that self-enrollment, the system tells me if they're self-enrolled, and we run a percentage and just to see how much is still improving and knowing that. And it's just the way that I report out into it to say, well, this is how many were self-enrolled and how many is completed. You know, how many are still sitting there that they were interested in it but never completed it. And that also is the same way that I use topics to find more of that same thing. If I have one that was for presentation speaking and I had 100 people take that, well, I'm going to look for another one of that same topic. And then if I have something on how to run a Zoom meeting or something and I only had 10 people, then we don't quite look at that one again and we just leave it there. EDF North America is 1,500 employees, so we kind of look at that in a sense of breaking it down into the 3 countries to see which topics they're using. And it's all just done by a spreadsheet and seeing that they're using the courses. And it's improved.
Great. And again, one of the benefits of centralizing everything, that you can go ahead and you can use that reporting to really look at the data, the usage, and being able to see if they're self-enrolled. And so you can kind of compare that with, is that something that we should roll out to others or maybe not? So Debbie has another question that came in and says, what reinforcement strategies are in place to ensure newly minted training and education is being used back in the workplace?
That would not be me. That's some of the stuff that's some of the, the manager for the L&D team. He has those communications with the other departments and stuff, and he's the one that really comes back and says, oh, they're using this, and we're having these discussions. And he's the one that's monitoring all of that, and I know that he does a really great job of that piece, and I unfortunately don't see anything unless he comes to me to say, find me a topic. So unfortunately, I can't answer that question as clearly as you would like, but I do know that they are out there and they are using it.
Okay, thanks. And if I don't know, I don't know. You have a lot of data at your hands, but maybe not everything. So, and we just have a minute left. And so, Shawn, if you could just recap how, upskilling and performance management of EDF employees has improved and has been consolidated through L&D, through education, through upskilling, as kind of a closing remark.
Really, the biggest thing is not having our silos has really been having all of these different platforms that everyone else was using and being able to bring it into one central place has been the biggest thing and the improvement and less stress that everyone's had since we started this 2.5 years ago. That was the biggest thing, of moving everything in one place instead of having 6 different admins running different data.
Perfect. The consolidating into a central location. So thank you, Shawn, for your time today. Thank you, everybody else who participated through Q&A or through your attendance today. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please reach out and let us know. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the conference.